Hello everyone and welcome. This is the watercolor tutorial for the Seen and Heard project, which is based off of Barbara Kruger's work. Today we're going to be going over 4 different watercolor techniques: the flat wash, sponge stamping, tape resist, and crayon resist. So you can see right here I am drawing out my circles, which I will be filling in a second. So to get started with watercolor, you notice that you must use water to activate the color. So what I like to do is get my brush real wet and then put a little bit in the pan, and that kind of activates it and wakes it up so the color kind of shows. And I keep adding water just because I want it to have a nice consistency when I start painting. So you can see here I'm doing the flat wash, which means it's going to be an even coat, so it's going to be one solid color. And I continue adding water just so I get, this even tone throughout. So if you don't have enough water, the watercolor can be more pigmented. And if you use more water, it's less pigmented. So meaning the colors can be brighter or a little bit quieter. So in between each wash and every time I'm painting, I like to rinse my brush off and pat it dry on the paper towel. That way I don't mix my colors together, but you are definitely able to mix your colors together in the palettes, and you can create some interesting tones that way too. So the second phase I'm going into is the sponge stamping. So I follow the same techniques as the last one, where I want to get the pan wet. So I get my sponge brush wet and then I bring it into the pan and to get the pigment onto it. So you can see here the pigment wasn't as strong as I want it to be, so I just went back into the pan to get more of the color out. So you can create some interesting patterns doing this and some textures, definitely depending on the kind of sponge you have or the sponge brush. So the third technique I'm going into is tape resist. So from the title, you're going to be using tape, and you're going to layer it on top of your paper however you'd like. For me, I wanted to make a kind of triangle shape, so I used 2 different pieces of tape to do that. So I'm really just blocking off my paper, and then I'll be painting around it. So you can see here I'm firmly putting the tape on the paper, but leaving enough room where I'm able to peel it off at the end without it ripping the paper. So again, I'm going to get my paintbrush wet and then put it in the paint pan and then go back in, and you can see here I'm kind of doing a flat wash. So it's going to be an even coat of the paint. So I'm moving on to my next color here. So I wanted to clean my brush off, and then sometimes I like to dry it off a little bit on the paper towel, pat it down. So I'm moving into my next color here. So I'm going to let my tape resist portion of the paper dry for a little bit, and then I'll go back to it and peel off the tape. But for this next technique, I'm going to be working with crayons, in my instance oil pastels, which will work as a resist, meaning the paint won't touch that part when I paint over. So you're going to kind of see how my design will be revealed after I paint some colors on top of it. So instead of using just one color for this, I wanted to bring in a second color. So this is really easy because watercolor, it's wet and it mixes really well on the paper, so you can definitely create some new pigments than what's in your watercolor pans. So here I'm just going over them and titling them. So we have our flat wash, which is that even, smooth, one-colored coat of paint. Then we have sponge stamping, which can add texture and pattern. You can use an actual sponge or a sponge brush. Our third one is the tape resist. So the tape is what is stopping the paint from getting to parts of the paper. And then our last is the crayon resist. So the crayon is preventing the paint from getting to certain parts of the paper. And for a fun little reveal, I'm peeling off the tape as carefully as I can so I don't rip the paper. I really hope you enjoy this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing your work with the Seen and Heard project. Thank you.